Hello and welcome to the show. This is Andy Shed Live for Sunday the 25th of August 2024, Series 16, Episode number 5. Hello there, welcome to the show. And they said it wouldn't last, Series 16, I can't believe it. I hope you've had a good week, everybody. Welcome aboard. As you can see, I'm in my more familiar surroundings once again this week than I was last week. Let me move my camera a bit because I've got a wonky camera. It's a bit loose and it keeps moving, so my apologies if it all moves about a bit today, because it just does. Yeah. So hello, yeah, as I say, hello and welcome to the show. This is Andy Shed Live once again for this Sunday evening. We are with you across Facebook and YouTube and also Odyssey as well. Have a little search for us. You'll find us on the Andy's Emporium page on Facebook. And you'll find us, well, just type Andy Shed Live into Odyssey or into YouTube and you should find us on there as well. Hello to everybody who is in the chat. I'm just having a look what everybody is saying in there. Bill says he's going back to work on Wednesday. Might miss a few Andy Shed Lives. It's early morning. Early morning? Where are you, Bills? In a strange place, like Christopher. Just looking what everybody's up to. Yeah, Dominic's got a new telephone as well. I will show you pictures soon. He's also got a replica dialing card for it, for the Doncaster area from 1962. Yes. Yes, Dominic, I have got your email on the ivory phone. So, yeah. Right. Okie dokie, we will get on with it, shall we? And remember, of course, that if you want to take part in the show, we are in the YouTube chat, which you should theoretically be able to find, and we also are in the Facebook chat as well. So if you're watching on Facebook, you should be able to chat via Facebook as well. So hello to everybody who's with us. Christopher is just one of the people who's with us tonight from out there in good old Australia. Says he went back to the old abandoned railway carriages, see if he could find some more handsets. I don't know if you did or not, though. Talking of handsets, as I said a few minutes ago, Dominic's got a new phone, or a new old phone, and he's sent us some pictures of it, which I can, I believe, show you. The chat might disappear though when I do this, but here they are anyway. So here it is. Yeah, this is Dominic's 300 series that he has recently acquired in ivory, of course, and it's a late one. It's one from the late 50s, I believe. In quite good nick, as far as I can tell. I'm just wondering if there's a crack in the front of it, right in the right front centre, sort of underneath the zero. I can see a little mark. I don't know if it's a crack or not. And he's got these reproduction cards to go in the little drawer on it, of course, which do look the part, I have to say. There it is underneath for what it is. PX58, as you can see under there, means it was made in 1958, and it's a 312L, so it's got a lettered dial. And there you see the indent, the lozenge shaped thing on the handset, that should have the date code and manufacturer code and that in it for handset 164, and I think it kind of has, but it looks worn away somehow to me. That's the only thing about it that does look a bit sus, because when you get things where that code is worn away, you think to yourself, well, why is it worn away? Has somebody worn it away deliberately? But I think it has got the right code on it. I always look at it when I see something like that, or it's worn away. I always look, does it say something like Indian Telephone Industries on it? But I don't think it does, that one. I think it is. I think it is correct. So that is Dominic's new phone that he's got there. Dominic, he says, yeah, there is a tiny hairline crack in the centre at the bottom. Wesley says, those line cords from vintage telephony really are very good, aren't they? Yeah, they're very expensive as well though, Wesley, for what they are. If you want to make your own line cords up, there is a company that sells that kind of cloth covered wire, a single core of it, because they use it for wiring vintage vehicles, and there is a company that will sell you a big roll of that in any colour you like for just over 30 quid, and it's a massive roll. You get like 100 line cords out of it for about 30 quid, so yeah, I do mean to get some, but I've not got round to it yet. It's one of those things I keep meaning to get round to and never quite do. Chris says, Andy, did the photos of the handset show in the email I got from the carriages? I've not seen them, Christopher. Doesn't mean they're not here somewhere, but I've not seen them. So I'll have to have a rummage round for those. Wesley says, I didn't think they were particularly expensive. How expensive are they, Wesley? I've not priced them up, but whenever I've looked at handsets like at line cords like that, they're about 10 or 15 quid, or maybe even 20 quid, which to me is expensive, because I think it should be about £3. Them cords, I'd be looking at them being about £3. Right, trying to sort out what we're doing here. Oh, hang on, I've got to get rid of that. Right, let's get rid of that. So yeah, there's his phone anyway, and there's the chat back as well for you, and stuff. So yeah, it looks like Dominic's got quite a nice phone there. What was I going to say? Internet stuff. Been having trouble with these this week. TP-Link Wi-Fi extenders that go through your wiring, that go through your house wiring. I've had a set. You plug one end in near your router, and then put a cable from your router into the bottom of there, an Ethernet cable, and then you plug the other lot in a room where your Wi-Fi doesn't reach. This bit you plug in a room where your Wi-Fi doesn't reach, and theoretically this puts Wi-Fi in that room. It worked for about 6 months, then fried itself. TP-Link, totally poor link. I think that's probably what it stands for. I've had to buy a new one. The new one I bought is slightly different. and did seem to connect up a lot better. So I'm wondering if they know very well that there's a fault with this variety. So if you've got one of these, of this type, have a look at that, and it's gone faulty, let me know, because I think TP stuff, that model particularly, was a bit dodgy. Let me know if you've got one of those that's gone faulty on you. So yeah, I've been fighting with that this week. I've also been having clock problems this week. I don't know if I showed you this or not last week, but I've got this out of a clock, and my problem is, if I can just get a camera on it, my problem is, well, I've got multiple problems with it. Firstly, springs broke, but in the act of the spring breaking in the clock when it was running, this has then gone whee all of a sudden, and it's knocked a few teeth off there, look. So I'm looking for one of these, and it's in a clock. I don't know what make of clock it is. It's just marked foreign on it, the clock, which some people have said means they're German if they're marked foreign, but I'm not totally sure. But any clockmakers amongst you will probably know there are ways of replacing those teeth. So, do we know a clockmaker who could replace those teeth on that barrel? If we do, let me know. Andy@coldpress.net. If we know any clockmakers who fancy a go at replacing those teeth on there, because I've got a clock mechanism sat on here that is waiting to go back together, that is awaiting that barrel going back in. So yeah, and it's annoying me that I can't put it back together. When I stall on a job like that because I've not got the bits, it really annoys me. Wesley says, better off with Ethernet than those power line things. Yeah, probably, Wesley, but it's got to go quite a long way, and it's awkward to get where it needs to go. And it's also then got to be Wi-Fi when it gets there, because it's running a security camera that there's no provision on the camera for plugging Ethernet into it. Dominic says there seem to be a lot of Ivory 300 series telephones about at the minute, which means they're going for much less than the usual price. There seem to be a lot of Bakelite telephones about in general at the minute, Dominic, and I don't know why. Wesley says Steve Fletcher. Yeah, if you've got a number for Steve Fletcher, Wesley, yeah, give him a shout, and we'll get him to put a few teeth in that. Yeah. Would actually like to go and see Steve Fletcher. Is one of the better people on the repair shop is Steve Fletcher. Yeah, some of them, have you noticed on that repair shop program, some of them are better than others. Not saying anything. Okay. Yeah. Bill says, yes, Bakelite telephones are having a bit of a dive, which is a shame, but means bargains for us. Yeah, that is very true. I predict all telephones will have a bit of a dive. As digital voice is rolled out, I predict all the old telephones, people will be getting rid of them. So yeah. Right, Christopher just resent his email for the handset, so we'll see if it arrives. Bill says, Andy, which telephones did you have growing up in the home? Right, right, Bills. Well, I can remember in the house we used to live in, which was at a little place called Lee Home Estate, which wasn't actually much of an estate at all, because they built about 3 or 4 houses on it, then gave up. I remember the phone being installed because it didn't have a phone. I was born in 1971, and for a good many years, first few years of my life, we didn't have a phone. And there's a lot of people who did not have phones until the late 70s or early 80s. A lot of people. In fact, of my family, I think we were the first house in the family probably to have a phone. And it was a ivory wall mounted. It would have been either a 711 or a 741. I don't know, because you can't tell from the outside, and I never opened it up at that point. But yeah, it was mounted on the wall in the front room, just as you came in from the little passage thing. So that was an ivory one of those. And then here, when we arrived here, there was a bright red 700. Now I don't know if it was a 706 or a 746. I suspect it was a 746. I can't remember. I know when they came and put plug and socket in the early 80s, they took it away, which was a great shame. But I think it was probably one of these. So I think that, but not with the dial upside down in it, because this is the one that we're working on to turn into one of those that we're building out of bits. But yeah, it was something like that. So yeah, and then various plastic things since then that BT, or Telecom as they were then, decided to inflict upon us. So yeah, that's what we had. Wesley says, I keep looking for a jade green phone, but they don't seem to be coming down in price. No, I don't think the jade green ones, and particularly I don't think the red ones will, Wesley. I think they'll stay up there. Also be very careful, because the jade green ones and the red ones, as you probably know already, are made out of Diacon, and it breaks and shatters so easily. They might as well have made them out of glass as making them out of Diacon, because it breaks and cracks and chips just the same. So if you do find one, be very, very careful. Have a good examination of it, and whatever you do not get it sent through the post, because they are really fragile, really fragile. Neville says it was better to have a carrier pigeon in those days. It probably was, Neville, yeah. You see, the problem was, you had a phone put in. Even in the 1970s, I remember the 1970s having a phone put in. But then you realise a lot of the people that you know haven't got phones, so you can't call them. And it seems really weird now. Now we've all got a mobile in his pocket, and probably a landline phone, and if we needed it, probably a spare mobile from a couple of years ago stuffed in a drawer somewhere. It seems weird that people just did not have phones as recently as 40 or 50 years ago. That people survived their entire life without a telephone. It seems impossible now, doesn't it? But they did. Dominic says, I was reading up on the early days of the Bakelite era and saw this fascinating article on the colours available for the 162s. It says, I'd always thought it was just black, ivory, green and red. Well, I thought it was just black, ivory, green and red, Dominic. But Wesley says there were some lovely mottled ones. There were some mottled ones, but I don't think they were GPO ones. There were some silver ones as well, but again I don't think they were GPO ones. The silver ones I believe were painted. The mottled ones, it was actually in the Bakelite. And there was a hotel somewhere, wasn't there, that had silver ones in this hotel. And one turned up recently, and I just can't remember where it was. But yeah, there were all the colours, but I don't think they were GPO foams. I think they were clones made for private systems. Bill says, how did they inject the Diacon moulds with colour? They didn't, Bill. The Diacon was that colour. I'm guessing the Diacon was kind of plastic pellets that were then heated up to make them, to liquefy them basically, and they were the colour that you wanted. I don't think they injected the colour into it. I think the plastic just is that colour. Dominic says, until 1934 you could have Siemens style mottled brown, and the GPO even offered lacquered finishes such as old gold and silver. Oh yeah, if you go back that far, pre-1934, yeah, possibly. Possibly. Like I say, there was certainly a hotel that had them all in, but they wouldn't have been GPO, I don't think. I think they would have been on a private system. And they had silver ones, but they were painted, or lacquered if you want. Dominic says the lacquered ones were withdrawn early because they found the finish wore off. No kidding. Could have told them that had happened. Because nothing sticks to Bakelite. Bakelite's a very strange material. It's fairly impervious to anything, Bakelite. Bill says, I remember when dial-up came in. Dial-up internet. Yeah, those were the days. In some ways, I wish we still had dial-up internet, then anybody could be an internet service provider. And it says, because having a phone was a luxury in the 30s, you could request custom colours to order. Pink! Pink! Can I have a pink one? Yeah. But it says, ours was disconnected before my time when line plant was in short supply and we were going to be put on a party line. My grandmother had it disconnected and she thought it was an invasion of privacy. The party lines kind of were an invasion of privacy, because if you picked the phone up, if the other person on the party line was in the middle of a conversation with somebody, you could hear it. So yeah, they kind of were. Um, Christopher says, Andy, you're going to get a shock at the state of the carriages in the photos in email. I'm not. I'm not. We've got a train scrapyard quite near me that I go past quite often. So, yeah, nothing will shock me. Dominic says, they're all rare as hen's teeth because there were maybe less than 1,000 non-ivory or black phones issued in total before World War II. Yeah, this is what always amazes me about the number of candlestick phones that turn up. Candlesticks, genuine candlesticks, turn up quite frequently. If you go on eBay now, there'll be some on eBay. And given that candlesticks were around in the 1920s and kind of into the 30s and that perhaps, and very few people had telephones, how come there are so many candlesticks still? How come there were so many made? Because they seem to have made enough for everybody on the planet to have one. But yeah, there's just so many still about. I think of all the candlesticks they issued, I think they probably all survived. Because there just seem to be a load out. I mean, they're expensive to buy for what they are, really. But there seem to be a load out there. And how come you always get the candlestick but never find the bell set for it? Wesley says there were some replicas made by telephone lines of Cheltenham, I believe, so care is needed when getting a coloured phone. Yes, they do replica case and that telephone lines. They do I think they do replica cases for bell sets and things. So you do have to be a bit careful of that. Bill says, I wonder if they overdid it with the candlestick. Well, they used to take them back in, Bills. They used to take a telephone number 1 back in and turn it into a telephone 150 in the 1930s. You know, and you can see where it's stamped telephone number 1 and the number 1's been crossed out and 150 put in its place. So yeah, they did wipe them up even then and refurbish them and send them out as something else. But I wonder if they did that with the bell boxes as well and sent them out as just bells, because finding a proper bell set to go with a candlestick phone is quite tricky. Getting the candlestick's the easy part, getting the bell set to go with it is the hard bit. So yeah, it's not easy. Dominic says business users were much more common before the 50s than home installations, and a plain candlestick or black phone would be issued there. Very true. Very true. Also remember, black and brown are the only colours you can make with Bakelite. All Bakelite, true Bakelite, is very dark muddy colours, so blacks, dark browns, dark reddish browns. You can do that with Bakelite. You certainly can't do ivory, you certainly can't do bright red or bright green. So if you've got an ivory phone from the Bakelite era or a red or a green phone from the Bakelite era, they are made out of different things. They are not actually Bakelite, although of course people still call them Bakelite. They're actually not. The red and the green ones are Diacon, the ivory ones are something else that I can never remember the name of because it's a complicated chemical name. But the weird thing that the ivory ones do is the plastic is not stable in the ivory ones. Where have we heard this before? And the ivory ones kind of go brown, and it looks like sort of swirls of brown toffee in the ivory when they start going. They don't go just brown. It kind of like swirls in the plastic. It's very strange what they do, and people tell me it also smells when they start going. That's off some sort of gas. So I don't know quite what's going on there. It's only the ivory ones that do it. The black ones are just straight up Bakelite. That's very stable. And the red and the green ones are straight up Diacon. That is super stable, and the colour never fades or anything in those. They never yellow or anything. But like I say, the problem with the Diacon ones is they chip and break, and that's why there's so few of them out there. So that's what they are, Bills. The red and green ones are Diacon, like the early 706s, and the ivory ones are whatever it is, but it's not Bakelite. Dominic will tell you. What is it, Dominic, that your phone's made out of? Chris says, is it a wood bell set that goes with the candlestick phones, Andy? Yes, Christopher. Originally, although you can pair them with a Bakelite bell set 25. What you have to watch out for is a bell set 25, a Bakelite bell set, and a bell set 26 are visually identical till you open them up. And when you open them up, they're identical, except for the fact a bell set 25 has got an induction coil in it, and a bell set 26 it's missing. And with a candlestick, you do need a bell set 25 with it. Now, there was somebody on Fleabay a little while ago selling a kit to put an induction coil into a bell set 26, and the induction coils looked as if they were the coils that had been desoldered out of a 746. So I have noted down what they did and what they wired up where, and it is something that I'm going to try and do and see if it works, because then you could turn a bell set 26, which is relatively common, into a bell set 25, which is definitely not common. Dominic says ivory phones are usually urea formaldehyde. I think you're right, Dominic. I think you're right. Didn't my email come through, says Christopher? Not yet, Christopher. Not yet. Might not come through while I'm streaming. It might not poll the emails while the stream's going on, because it's all to do with internet speed and that, and the computer might just not bother checking emails because it's too busy trying to sort the stream out. Dominic says vintage telephony sell a little circuit board which converts a 26 into a 25. That may be it. All it needs to be is an induction coil. That's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be on a circuit board. It just needs to be an induction coil. I've often wondered if the induction coils out of the 300 series would do, because they look roughly similar. Bill says, I thought the bell set 25 goes in the wall and the bell set 26 is mounted underneath. No, Bills, no. Both of those bell sets, a 26 and a 25, can either be mounted remote to the phone, or they can be mounted underneath a a what we would now call a pyramid phone. I have one here. It's rather dusty because it's been under the desk for a long time. But I have one here I can show you. Just let me dust it off for a minute, and I'll show you. Crikey, it's got dusty this. Where did all this dust come from? Now, but there is something that is different. If you want to mount it under the phone, there is something that is different that I'll explain in a moment. So here is a phone with the bell set mounted underneath. So the phone finishes here, and this bit is the bell box. Yeah? Okay? This bit is the bell box. Now, it's all joined together with the screws that are normally on the top of the bell box, and what you end up doing is putting them in the other way up. I think going the other way up. I think I'm right in saying that. So you put that back because it's heavy. So what happens, I've got one here. What happens is you normally have in a bell set a screw in the top of the bell set that looks roughly like that. Okay, but what you have when you have the belt mounted underneath, you have this special screw that's got like 2 sets of threads on it and a threaded shaft in the top. Yeah. And I think I'm right in saying this. You take the base off the telephone. I'm remembering what you do now. You take the base off the telephone and then make a sandwich of telephone on top, then the bell set with its cover on, then the draw bit of the telephone go right on the bottom, and you put these in then from the bottom up like that, because you've taken the screw base off the telephone. Yeah, so the screwed on base, which is the bit with the drawing on the telephone, then that bit actually then goes into the telephone. Yeah, that bit then goes into the cover of the bell box and the bell box, and then the original screws that held the base on the telephone you then put in the hole in there. I think I've got that right. So they fit that way up, so you've got your telephone on top, then your bell set, then the base of your telephone, all held together with that. Now these are quite rare. You find these in bell sets and you find the bell set that way up. But these are rare because these are the ones that hold it together. There's a simpler version of this that simply screws the cover onto the bell set, but it's not one of these where you can turn it into a king pyramid, because it's not as fancy as this. It just screws the cover onto the bell set. But this is the one that you can put in. If you imagine when you've got a normal bell set sat there, this goes in the top through the Bakelite cover. Yeah. Well, what you're going to be doing is putting it in that way up. So it goes through the bottom of the bell set, the bottom of then through the Bakelite cover from the inside up, and then into the base of the telephone. I think I'm right in saying that. Am I right in that? Or have I got that wrong? Because it's a long time since I've done it. It's a long time since I've took one off. But I think I'm right in saying that is how it goes. Yeah, I think I'm right in that. So yeah, so basically a 25 and a 26 can be mounted under the phone, or they can be separate to the wall. So yeah, basically. So you need one of those if you're wanting to mount. Well, you need two of those actually. If you're wanting to mount a bell set up under a phone. But sometimes you're lucky and the bell sets have already got those in, just the other way up. Wesley says that's the way, I'm sure. Yeah. So you do it the other way up. But the trouble with them is that these are a bit fragile. If you look, it's a fairly thick shaft there, but it's narrower there. And what happens is they break just there at the bottom of that first thread. So this bit breaks off. Have I got a broken one here? Yeah. So that end bit that actually goes up inside your telephone, when it's mounted that way up, that bit breaks off like that. You see, that's a broken version of it. If you can see that. Excuse my dirty hands, I've had a stationary engine in bits just before I came on air tonight. But you see where it's broken. Can you see that, where it's broken off? So yeah. So yeah. So they're a bit fragile. If anybody's good on a lathe and fancies making some of those, I think there might be a market for some of those. Yeah. So that is the bell set thing. Christopher says I have two 162s on top of bell set 25s. Yeah, that sounds right, Christopher. That does. Yeah. So 162, I don't think has a induction coil inside it. A 200 series should have an induction coil inside it, although there was a restorer here in the UK who was going around nicking induction coils out of 200 series phones. So if you're buying a 200 series in the UK, make sure it's got an induction coil in it, because it should have to make it, and then it will go with the bell set 26, of which there's quite a few about. Bell set 26s, I think I've got maybe half a dozen So yeah, that's the thing. Wesley says, I think somebody's making those little screws already. He says, I got a set for my 162 and don't think they were a period apart. Yeah, perhaps somebody is making them then, Wesley. Because you really do need them. If you want to mount a bell set under a phone, you do need that fancy screw. There's no other way of doing it. No other way of doing it at all. Chris says, my 162s, so one's a CB and the other one's got a dial. Cool. You see, a lot would have been CB back then because a lot wouldn't have had dials. You know, a lot of them would be connected to exchanges where there was a girl sat there going, number please. Yeah. It always amazes me how little money CB telephones fetch on eBay and stuff, because people look at them and go, oh, that telephone's not got a dial, I can't use that, and they don't realise that you can just take the plate off and fit a dial. And I think actually a lot of people have took the plates off and fitted dials to them, because you see an awful lot of Bakelite phones with dial 21s on them, and you also see an awful lot of those CB blanking plates for Bakelite phones. Those Bakelite blanking plates come up all the time, but very rare you see a 700 series blanking plate turn it into a CB. In fact, when I wanted one, I had a devil of a job getting one. When I wanted a black one, a devil of a job getting one. Dominic says, the Bellset 26 is possibly the longest production run of any GPO item. They simply stuck a new case on it and kept making them until the end of the 700 series. Yeah, they did basically, yeah. Yeah, it possibly is the longest one. I wonder if they put different rings and things in them later on, though. I wonder if they put like a 700 series ringer in rather than the original slightly bigger coils of the Bakelite ones. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, they certainly made Bellset 26s for a long time. I've got both versions. Mainly I've got the ones with the Bakelite cases. In fact, I think I've got a couple with no cases at all that have come as parts. But I have had an influx of Bakelite bits and pieces recently. There are a couple of job lots of Bakelite things that I bought that were chassis of bell sets and also chassis out of 300 series phones mainly. I've got a lot of 300 series phone chassis at the minute. A lot of chassis out of 300 series. So yeah, I could do with finding some cases, some 300 series cases. Yeah, I could, yeah. Yes. Yeah, I've been wondering what to do with them, because I buy bits now. I don't tend to buy phones, complete phones now. Certainly not as one-off phones, because prices are just stupid. So I tend to buy parts and assemble a phone from the bits I've bought. Just reading what everybody's saying. Wesley says, I have a Bellset 4B, or is that 48? That's not often seen. It's a 706 era Bellset for a pendant phone, similar to a Bellset 50B. Right. I made one of those. yeah, that bell set, Wesley, is basically a 746 without the hook switch, isn't it? That belt set is basically without the metal work for the hook, but there's a rub because it has to have a extra terminal on the circuit board, and not all 746 circuit boards have that extra terminal on them. Some do and some don't. It's terminal something or other B, or something or other A or something. But yeah, they have this extra terminal on its own that you need to do it. Otherwise you have to do some tricky wiring. You can do it with ones that haven't got that extra terminal on, but you have to mess about with some wiring. But yeah, I made one, and I seem to remember I had to put a jumper wire across somewhere to do it. But I didn't make one out of bits of a 746 and bits of some other bell set as well, because I did put together a working pendant phone, and to be honest, I need to do some more, because one of the things that's come in recently in all this Bakelite stuff is some pendant phones, Bakelite pendant phones. The one that I did it for before was a 700 era pendant phone, but I've now got some Bakelite ones coming, so I need to start looking at pendant phones again. I really do, because yeah, there's a lot of wiring involved in a pendant phone. The way you come unstuck, though, of course, is you need the dial that fits under the desk that slides out in a little drawer. You need the dial, and they are rare as hen's teeth, the little dials, what they call the drawer dials. Rare as hen's teeth they are, very, very hard to get. I got one, put it into use, and then I got a box of bits not long ago, and I think there was one in that box of bits as well, so I think I've now got an unused one. Yeah, it's the drawer dial that is the thing for the pendant phone, because I've thought of fitting one to this desk. I've thought of fitting the pendant phone to this desk, but yeah, I quite like the pendant phones. They're quirky. Wesley says you can omit the dial if not required. Yeah, it would be though, Wesley, because I need it to dial out. So yeah, I would need the dial to make it fully usable, sort of thing. But yeah, quite like pendant phones. Do quite like pendant phones. What I've never quite understood about the pendant phone, though, is why the GPO did that and had it all in bits when in America they were quite capable in America of making one of those, which, I mean, it's not designed to go on a wall, I'll grant you, although it probably could. But if they could fit all the gubbins of a telephone, including the bells, into there, why did the GPO do the pendant phone the way they did in bits? Why didn't they do it all in one piece like that? And that's older than a GPO pendant phone. So yeah, answers on the proverbial postcard, please. Chris says, I see Ericsson 706 clone telephones come up all the time in Australian eBay. Yeah, they come up here as well, Christopher. Generally grey ones. Very rarely another colour comes up. They're not always Ericsson though. Sometimes they are other companies. But I've got a green one here, for instance, which is an AEI one, I think. AEG from 1967. This one, but yeah, it's a green one. Easy to spot in the UK because of the numbers only on the dial surrounds. You know it's a clone when they're like that. But I've got a green one. I think I've got an ivory one. I've got a black one. Well, the black one here on the desk actually. Various grey ones. Have I got a yellow one? Have I got a blue one? I think I've got a blue one. Don't think I've got a red one. Don't think I've got a red one. Made by anybody. But this one, as I say, this is AEG. This is not Ericsson. This one. So yeah, just because it's a clone, it's not necessarily made by Ericsson. The way you tell if it's an Ericsson one or not is it will have an N1900 number stamped somewhere on it, on the base or something. It'll say N1900, and then it'll have another code after it, like a 3-digit code of letters and numbers. Yeah, and normally, well, quite often, not always, but quite often, the clone phones are more cheaply made than the GPO ones. So they do sometimes miss out things like an induction coil, because you can make the phone work without an induction coil. It just means that the line voltage is going through the handset and could eventually damage the magnets in the handset. But it won't happen for many years, and they were making them to a price, so they just missed the induction coil out. Wesley says, my pendant phone is intended for the shed, just to answer calls, so not fussed about a dial on it. Yeah, that's a good idea, Wesley. Christopher says, do you have a red N1900 phone? Chris says, you do have a red N1900 phone. You showed it on one of your live streams. Do I? I wonder if I can find it. Just thought where it might be. You're quite right, Christopher, I do. It's here. You've got a good memory, Christopher, I'll give you that. You've got a really good memory, mate, because I completely forgotten. But yeah, and this is, I think this is actually an Ericsson one. Yes, it is. Yeah, there it is. With a strange dial arrangement on it. Looks like a dial 12, but look closely at that finger stop with that straight edge on it. It's a dial 21, but it's had a dial 12 finger wheel put on it, and because it's had a dial 12 finger wheel put on it, and a dial 12's normally got a hump in the middle of it, which a dial 21 hasn't got so much, you can't put your fingers as deep into the holes. So your fingers don't go into the holes quite as far as they should. So that's a bit of a mismatched bodge, that. But yeah, that's from Telephone Rentals. As you can see, it's got a Telephone Rentals card in the middle of it, and the way you tell it's an Ericsson one is sort of stamped into it. There is a number that starts N1900, in this case N1900E244, which is one of the codes that they often have, and yes, it's missing a foot. So yeah, well spotted, Christopher. Right, I've got to get it back in this drawer now. I've just got it out. It was hiding in a filing cabinet drawer. Let's see. All sorts in that drawer. So there. Thanks to Christopher for reminding me I got that. How did you remember that? 'Cause that must have been quite a while ago. Yeah. Well spotted, Christopher. But yeah, we've got all sorts of things, and I just wish I had a bit more time to sort of sit and potter. I also wish I had a bit more workshop space. I'm looking to try and rent a workshop or something somewhere, because I've just got no room to do anything. And when you're comparing stuff, sometimes you sometimes want to have a number of phones side by side, or with the tops off, so you can compare one to another. Because I remember I did a video some time ago where I did it with compact phones, you know, Jubilee phones and that, and I took the top off about 3 or 4 of these compact phones and realised they're all totally different inside. And I did do a video about it, but I sort of did that on the kitchen worktop, where I got a long Formica worktop and that. But yeah, and I found that some compacts you wire differently to others and stuff like that, and it's all to do with some of them, mainly the Jubilee ones, actually being the prototypes that were sent out to the field trial in the early 70s and then recalled and turned into Jubilees. Christopher says, I have a rare yellow N1900 A66. Yeah, A66 is an oddball code on the end of it. I'm not quite sure what those codes on the end after the N1900 mean. If anybody knows what those codes after the N1900 mean, let me know. Christopher says, the Western Electric handset with press buttons that I pull out of the abandoned trash hate set carriages do work. I tested them. Right, let's have a look, Christopher, and see if your email has arrived. Just bear with me 1 second. We'll see if we can find your pictures, because it should have arrived by now, surely. Oh yeah, there I think it is. Alright, I will get these pictures up in a moment. At least I'll try to. So these are to H-set carriages in Australia. And we will have a little look. Just a moment. So I've got to get this to work right now. So these are out of Australian H-set carriages that Christopher has recovered, and they do indeed look like Western Electric 500 series handsets from America. So I'm not quite sure where they were made, if they were made in America and shipped out there, or perhaps they were made by someone like Northern Electric, who also made them, because they had a plant in Ireland. But there they are, and there they are the other way up. I've gone a bit too high on the screen. There they are the other way up. So yeah, so saved from the scrap man. Well done, Christopher. There's one sideways on showing the button quite nicely there. I'm guessing that's like a push to talk button for when they were in use as like public address handsets in the carriages. And there are the abandoned carriages. They don't look that old, those carriages, actually. Are you sure they didn't want them, Christopher? Because they don't look that old. I mean, that looks like a relatively modern livery they're carrying and stuff. Quite surprised that they've just been dumped there like that. And there's the man himself. And yeah, broke window and everything. There's the carriage they came out. They're very short, those carriages, aren't they? Yeah, but I guess they're like suburban. It's like a suburban stock, isn't it? What a waste of perfectly good carriages, though. Yeah. Don't know why they don't put those back into service. I really don't. Yeah, so that's Christopher's handsets and things that he's managed to acquire, shall we say, out of the old H-set stock out there in Australia. It says the H-sets were made in the 50s. You're kidding, they don't look that old, those. They're really that old. They don't look that old. They really don't look that old. They must have had some refurbishment gone on. Dominic says, got to head off in a minute. We'll see you all soon. Cheers, Dominic. Yeah, I've got to go as well in a minute. Not had my tea yet. Not had my pizza yet. Christopher says it was live stream when the Ericsson phone was on. He says it was series 12 episode 14 of Andy Shed Live, if anybody wants to look it up. How do you know that, Christopher? I've got no idea how he knows, but he does. Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I've totally forgotten. I forget what I was doing this morning, so there's no way I'm going to be able to go back to series 12 and remember what we did. but they are all up there on YouTube and should be up there on Odyssey as well. So if you want to go back and have a look at Series 12 Episode 14, feel free. It should be there. Right. Anyhow, I think that probably is about as far as we go for today. Because, to be honest, there's not been a lot in the world of telephones happening really this week. Been a bit busy with other things. Everything kind of broke this week. We've got a couple of security cameras here that failed because they lost connection to the internet thanks to that power line adapter thing. We've got some Google Home stuff that turns some lights and things on, and that all failed as well because that lost connection to the internet and stuff. And solar panels that talk to the internet, they failed as well because they lost connection to the router and that, because I had to reset my router name and password and stuff. So yeah, I've been basically fixing broken tech this week, which is not my favourite thing to be having to do, having to go into like firmware and routers and stuff like that. Christopher says, yes, those carriages were refurbished in the 80s, apparently. Neville says you could make a workshop out of them. Yeah, you could have a workshop carriage, Christopher. That's a good idea. Yeah. Recycle them into rolling stock and telephone workshops. Yeah. So yeah, that's about it, I think, for this week. Yeah, thanks to everybody for taking part in it all once again. Just trying to think where we're going to be next week. Yeah, I think we'll be here actually next week. Do you think we'll be here? It is Heege Windmill. I'll be at Heege Windmill with a stationary engine next Sunday. So if you are in the area of Nether Heege in Derbyshire, then pop along to Heege Windmill next Sunday, and you'll see me there with a stationary engine. All be well if it starts. Yeah, I mended that today as well. I had that in bits today. So yeah, that should be good. Christopher says, though that rolling stock that was refurbished in the 80s was refurbished again in 2020. So if it was refurbished again in 2020, why is it out of service in 2024? That wasn't very economically viable, was it? Wesley says, don't forget about the ABS hole filling demo, Andy. I had forgotten, Wesley. Well remembered. I will see if I can get that sorted for next week. And Christopher says, I did have permission to take those handsets out from his friend at V-Line. Yeah, he did have permission to go and get them out of some of the carriages. So he did do it with full permission. He didn't just go raiding the railway for bits. Yeah, Wesley, the whole filling, the ABS slurry demo thing, we'll try and get it sorted for next week for you. Yeah, brill, excellent. Right, that is about it from me for now. I am now going to have my pizza, but my pizza is not going to have pineapple on it because fruit on pizza is not a thing. Right, that's controversial. That'll start to set you all off now. So until next week, have a fantastic week ahead, everybody. And we will see you all soon. Christopher says he's got keys for a H set as well, so maybe he will end up one of those cabbages. Who knows? I'll see you next week. Have a great week ahead. See you next time. Bye for now, everybody. Bye.